So I'd say we got something of a curveball with this newest Nintendo Switch Online update that was just announced from Nintendo, because earlier in the month we actually saw them add in a batch of Game Boy games, NES and SNES. It was a decent addition. It was of course a shadow drop with no lead up and trailer, and we of course discussed the fact that when we see something like a Game Boy Advance or N64 game added in, we normally get a week heads up and a game trailer before those games go live. Interestingly, Game Boy Advance was also the system that received an update last month, leading us to maybe believe that Nintendo is in something of a alternating cycle with a Nintendo 64 game on certain months and Game Boy Advance games on other months when each respective console doesn't get its update. A tick-tock cycle or a alternating update roadmap schedule for those two particular consoles. Well, in today's video, we have to discuss the brand new Game Boy Advance game that has been officially announced to be out on June 23rd. And this is coming to us straight after the addition of the latest Mario Advance games that were all added in at the same time, fortunately, all three of them. And I want to have a broader discussion on what this could likely signal when it comes to the update cadence for Game Boy Advance and N64 game as part of Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack going forward. What's up, nation? Make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your bell notification if you haven't already. And as mentioned, guys, today we are discussing the brand new surprise Nintendo Switch Online update, which you can see on screen. Nintendo of America took to Twitter late last night to post, Lynn, Elliewood, and Hector must amass an army strong enough to fight back the forces that would destroy their homeland in the Game Boy Advance version of Fire Emblem, coming to Nintendo Switch for Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack members on June 23rd. Now, it is June 16th at the time of filming this video, so exactly 1 week from now, you will be able to hop in and enjoy Fire Emblem, the Game Boy Advance version, which is fantastic. In fact, you will actually be able to play it late Thursday night because these titles always go live based off Japan time. So late Thursday night, you will actually be able to hop in, which is the 22nd, and play this addition to your Game Boy Advance library. Now, I personally don't have nostalgia for this title myself, so I'll be excited to play through some of it as I make time for it, but I do think that this is a really interesting signal when we talk about the broader implications of what Nintendo's doing with Nintendo Switch Online, because it's always been hard to nail down some kind of pattern or some type of expectation on how they're updating their games for this thing. And the one thing that we had to go off of for a very long time was one N64 game per month. In fact, it was sticking to that schedule since they added in N64 all the way back in October of 2021, and we really never saw it miss until late 2022, where we had that month in September when they held the direct and revealed additional games that were on the way, including GoldenEye, which of course was a huge announcement. We didn't get one that month. Then we actually got skipped in the month of December as well, but we had two Mario Party games drop into the pass at the same time in the month of November prior to it, so it seemed like they kind of still loosely stuck to that schedule. But there was that one wording in the September Nintendo Direct of 2022 that stuck out to me. That was the word gradual, and Nintendo made it very clear that they would gradually be adding in the rest of the N64 games roadmap, and we are now seeing them kind of do that. Now, this Fire Emblem update actually does not signify that Nintendo can't go out there and add an N64 game this month to the expansion pack as well. In fact, I hope we see them do that. But it also could be a signal that for whatever reason, the next N64 game they're holding on to, and they're going to drop it in something like July and not give us an additional update to NSO this month, because we have so far seen them update the base tier and the expansion pack tier, and that's about as good as we typically have it as paying Nintendo Switch Online subscribers, and I wouldn't necessarily expect them to deliver more than that. It is also a game that has a week lead up to its release, so as mentioned, it's going to be dropping on the 23rd. They would have to turn around and also announce an N64 game by the 23rd to give it its full week lead up before it drops, because I don't think that we start to see them shadow dropping N64 games into the service. I think that it does get that time to play out and to get hype built up like we see them do really every single edition around Game Boy Advance and N64. That's clearly kind of what they stick to. So it does tend to signal to me that it is less likely that we will be seeing an N64 game drop into the service this month as well, which really does set an interesting precedent for us fans on when we can expect the rest of the titles to be added in. We still know we're missing games like Pokemon Stadium 2, we're missing 1080 snowboarding, we're missing Excite Bike 64, we're missing Mario Party 3. All of those are in the holster. I wish we could actually get through those by now so we could get some unannounced N64 games. I'm really ready to play Smash 64 online. Like, I really want Smash Bros, the classic version that I grew up with, the very first one as a kid that I remember playing through, and I have so much nostalgia around it. I would even play through classic mode and go through and fight Master Hand again at the end with all the characters. Like, legitimately enjoyed that game through and through, and there's not a ton of characters to beat it with anyway. But, you know, we need games like that. We need to blow through the roadmap that we have so far to really start to see the value that's going to be added with N64, because, yes, we have some great games on there today, and to be totally honest, the N64 does have a more shallow library when it comes to first-party releases, but Nintendo still can dig a lot deeper than they have. We have Donkey Kong 64 just sitting there waiting, Banjo-Tooie, Diddy Kong Racing. Like, there's a ton of... Sure, there's some licensing fees around working things out with Rare, but they're in partnership with Rare. They brought GoldenEye back. We have Banjo-Kazooie playable. There's no reason that they can't get through and sign some of the deals that they need to sign with them to bring those games back to the Switch as well. And it's kind of interesting that we are going to be really left on the sidelines questioning what the heck is going on with N64. I hope that by some miracle, Nintendo does announce an N64 game for this month, because if that is the case, then we could maybe start to see them, even if they skip a month here or there and not acknowledge it, they could maybe dump it in the same month as a Game Boy Advance release. But in light of this news, while it is a good addition at the end of the day, and while I'm hyped for Fire Emblem fans out there to have this Game Boy Advance edition, I do think that it paints an interesting picture for how long we might go without seeing a new N64 game in any way, shape, or form. And I really hope that Nintendo doesn't leave us totally on the sidelines. They may get through the rest of the N64 Road Map by September, where we will hopefully get a new mainline direct and a deeper look at what's coming with NSO. I'm not necessarily expecting new consoles. I think it'd be great if they did that, but considering that we just got the Game Boy family of systems in February, I think that it's less likely that they do additional consoles in September. But I do think at the very least, they have to give us a detailed roadmap of what to expect in terms of N64 content and in terms of Game Boy Advance and even Game Boy games that so many are on the table. I can't wait till Zelda Oracle of Ages and Seasons drops one day. That'll likely be a shadow drop, so we'll definitely be talking about it here on the channel. But that's really where I want to hear from you guys at this point in the video. What do you think about this newest update to the Game Boy Advance library? And more specifically, what do you think the signals for N64 updates going forward? Do you think that there's a chance that we do indeed get an N64 game added into the service this month and there's really nothing to worry about on Nintendo's timing around it? Or do you think the signals that we might go multiple months in a row without seeing any mention of N64 games, and maybe Game Boy Advance gets some more of the love as opposed to N64 for the time being, since it's the newer system on the block? So regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around this topic. Go watch yesterday's video next if you haven't already, which is on screen right now. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.